All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to talk about something that, it feels simple, but the more you think about it, the more it kind of gets under your skin. And that's this huge and honestly growing gap between how fast technology is moving and how slow society is to catch up. So let me just ask you, have you felt this? This feeling that technology is just leaping forward every couple of months, while our big institutions, our day-to-day habits, even our own brains are still trying to figure out the last big thing that happened.
This right here, this visual just nails it perfectly. It's like technology is an Olympic sprinter, just shattering records every single day, while society is kind of shuffling around in its slippers, trying to find the coffee maker. This mismatch right here is the root of everything we're going to explore.
So first up, let's try to get a real handle on what this accelerated future actually looks like, and more importantly, why things feel so, different right now.
See, it wasn't always like this. For pretty much all of human history, technology and society kind of walked hand in hand. They evolved together. The printing press took centuries to totally reshape the world. But now, technology isn't just running, it's a full-on rocket ship. It launches, it updates, it moves on, and it really doesn't care if we're ready for it or not.
And this quote, man, it gets right to the heart of the whole thing. Our social structures, our laws, our psychology, we need time to process big changes. We have to digest them. But technology, it has absolutely no need for that. And that one single difference is creating these massive shockwaves everywhere.
Which brings us to, the real world. What actually happens when a society that was built for walking is suddenly forced to live in a world that just sprints? Well, the friction shows up in these three huge areas: how we learn, how we work, and how we decide what's right and wrong. I mean, this isn't some abstract problem for the future. It is happening right now, today.
Just think about education for a second. We've got classrooms that were basically designed for the industrial age, teaching a curriculum that can't possibly keep up, all to prepare students for jobs that are literally vanishing before our eyes. The system isn't just a little outdated, it's actively preparing kids for a world that, in a lot of ways, has already disappeared.
And then you've got work. I mean, automation promises all this incredible productivity, but what it often delivers is structural unemployment. A new piece of software can be rolled out globally in a couple of weeks, but it takes a real person years to retrain, to find a new path. That gap between the speed of the machine and the pace of a human life, that's a huge source of anxiety for so many people.
And of course, that brings us to ethics, which always feels like it shows up late to the party, right? Social media was built to connect us, and it was only years later that we started having a serious conversation about what it was doing to our mental health, to our democracy. It's like we build the fastest car you can possibly imagine and only start thinking about where to put the brakes after it's already doing 150 down the highway.
And this crazy pace leads to something really interesting, what I like to call the normalization of the absurd. I mean, seriously, a little over a decade ago, the idea of having a real back-and-forth conversation with a machine was straight-up science fiction. Today, millions of us do it every single day. The tech moves so fast, we don't even have time to register how weird it all is anymore.
And that leads to what might just be one of the most dangerous phrases of our time. This quiet little acceptance, this shrug of the shoulders. That's how we passively sign up for these radical changes without ever really stopping to question them.
I know. This all sounds pretty bleak. But here's the thing. This is where the story pivots. This isn't the end of the line. Because this is not a story about how humanity collapses. Not at all. This chaos we're feeling, it isn't an ending. It's actually a beginning. It's that discomfort that always comes right before a major growth spurt. So instead, let's think of this as a test of our collective maturity. The challenge isn't to get mad at technology for being so fast. The challenge is for us, as a society, to finally grow up and decide where we actually want all this incredible progress to take us. And really, there are two paths forward. When we just passively consume whatever new tech comes along, we get dragged around by its impact. But when we actively participate, when we start asking questions and we really try to understand it, that impact can be turned into a massive benefit. The only thing that changes is whether we're paying attention or not. So how do we actually do that? How do we go from being these passive passengers to being active drivers? How do we finally take the wheel? Okay, this is probably the most important shift in thinking we have to make. Trying to slam the brakes on technology is not only impossible, it's actually a really bad idea. This progress has incredible potential. The goal isn't to stop the rocket, the goal is to learn how to steer it.
So, how do we steer? Well, the path forward really involves three big things. First, we need real deep digital education for everyone, not just the experts, so we can all speak the same language. Second, we have to encourage honest, widespread public debate about where we're all headed. And third, we have to approach all this stuff with a genuine desire to understand it without the blind panic on one side or the crazy fanaticism on the other.
Because when you really boil it all down, the problem isn't the tech. The real problem is the silence. The silence in our schools, which aren't talking about the world their students are actually going to face. The silence in our public conversations, where these topics are just ignored. And maybe most important, the silence in our own heads when we just accept the next big thing without asking that simple question, why? So let's just end on that thought. The true challenge of our time isn't the technology itself. It's our silence in the face of it. And you know what the good news is? We can still choose to speak up. We can choose to learn, and we can start steering. Because the future, after all, it hasn't happened yet.